Now, in my lifetime, I've known you to always be quite the world traveler. What are some of the countries, the standout countries that you've been to?
Well, I think, not to answer specifically first that question, but I think my love of travel came from my parents. Although I never took a plane trip until I was a sophomore in college. But he loved to, on his vacation, drive. We would drive from Chicago either out here to see his relatives or we'd drive to Michigan. So he loved doing that. And it was always a routine. We got up early in the morning, drove for a couple of hours, stopped for breakfast, stopped early for dinner, and found a place to stay, and then we do the same thing. But my husband liked to travel. And so, one of the first places, of course, he was anxious for me to go back to meet his people, as he would say, in Ireland. So, we did, I believe the first trip was around 1961 or 62, and my parents babysat. It would have been two children at the time. And of course, I loved Ireland, the greenery, the
Yeah.
scenery. And what we would do most of the time while the children were growing up, our trips were to Ireland to see his parents. He felt that every 2 to 3 years we would go back there because they couldn't afford to come out here. But while we were back there, we would go at least 2 or 3 weeks, 2 weeks usually. And he always felt that he needed to give his parents a break.
Yeah.
So we would take bus tours, the CIE bus tours, throughout Ireland, which were some areas he'd never seen. Or we would find a medical convention. The first one was in London. And then we went to Ghent, Belgium for another one. And then to Dublin. And I don't recall any others that we did, but
Was that your first time leaving the continental United States? Was when
yes,
you went to Ireland? Wow.
yes, I had never been out of the country, and I'd never been on a plane until a classmate of mine and I flew back to Washington, D.C. because I was invited to June Week at Annapolis
Wow.
from a boy that I knew in high school at Mater Dei. He went there.
What other countries did you travel to in your lifetime?
Well, my husband and I took several cruises. One cruise was to the Caribbean, and we went to the islands of St. Thomas and Cozumel and Grand Cayman and Jamaica. And we also, once we moved to the colony here in Murrieta, we went with a group to the Panama Canal, which was so fascinating.
Yeah.
And then we, of course, we didn't disembark in Panama, but we went to Colombia and Costa Rica and then ended up in Acapulco. We didn't see much of Acapulco. And then we took, sponsored by the Parkinson Support Group, or National Parkinson Foundation, we went on a cruise to see the fall foliage. So we went to Nova Scotia and Quebec City
Wow.
in, obviously, Quebec, and went down the St. Lawrence Seaway, and then went to the eastern part of the United States, Boston, Kennebunkport, Maine, saw the estate of the Bushes, and Portland, Maine.
What did you think about when you were traveling with Rudy to all these different places? What were some of the experiences that you gained from traveling there?
Well, it was such an exposure to me of the European culture and history. I was fascinated by a medieval castle in Ghent, Belgium,
Huh.
where we went for a medieval banquet, and the tapestries on the walls, and the just their culture. And every country has beauty. I can remember going through Brussels, Belgium, and seeing everybody seemed to have flower pots in the windows. There were flowers everywhere. And although the language was a bit of a handicap, the people were very warm and welcoming. And Rudy and I also went to, I'm trying to think where, one of the highlights of our trips was a pilgrimage to the Marian Shrine, shrines devoted to our Blessed Mother, in Spain, Portugal. We went to Andorra. We went to Fatima, Portugal, and Morocco, and Lourdes, France.
Wow.
And that was a 3-week trip with people that we knew from Anaheim. And it was a wonderful experience.
And that was just a tour with just a small group of people, your friends?
There were 40, I think there were 44 of us.
And that was all people you met here at the colony?
No.
Oh.
These were people that we had known for a long time from Anaheim. And one of our deacons at our church in Anaheim, Ray Duthoy, organized it. And he's such a go-getter that everything was just laid out perfectly. We had enough R&R time to do our own thing and to experience the places where we went. Sevilla, Spain, and Granada, and saw the Alhambra, which used to be a mosque. And just the beauty of all of these sites, and to think how old they are, and how they've weathered the test of time.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, by myself, the highlight was going to the Holy Land, to Israel and then to Rome.
What year was that when you went over there?
That's a good question. I think it was 3 or 4 years ago, which would have made it 2009 or 10.
And that was the time you went with other people in the colony here?
No.
No, still?
No, this was still back with Anaheim.
Oh, okay.
Actually, it was organized by a group from Irvine.
Okay.
And so there were probably maybe 5 to 7 of us that knew each other, but we made friends with the other people. And we stayed in Jerusalem and Haifa and went to Bethlehem and saw where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered and how they are kept today.
Mm-hmm.